Call to order.
Okay, the Sebastian Parks and Recreation meeting will come to order, please. And can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Morrow?
Here.
Ms. Webster she's not here.
She is excused, Ms. Graham.
Ms. Drumheller?
Present.
Mr. Denise?
Present.
Ms. White?
Here.
Mr. Renzi?
Present.
Brian, is Mr. Agadello?
Yes, Mr. Agadello is excused as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any agenda modifications?
Yes.
I would like to recommend one agenda modification and new business to change it from pickleball court rules, plural, to rule singular discussion.
Discussion on that?
There's only one rule that we're looking to
Okay.
talk about.
Okay. I don't think
What
we.
rule is that?
Agreeable?
I actually think that since it's a discussion about pickleball court rules and it's an agenda item, I would like to see any of the rules up for discussion versus just one.
So do you want to leave it then?
I just want to leave it as is.
Is that
I don't
okay?
think we need to change the agenda.
Okay. All right.
Okay, can we have minutes of the last meeting approved? Has everybody read them? Is there any discussion on them before I ask our approval? Discussion, can I get a motion for approval then?
I'll move that we approve the minutes as written from the meeting of December 20.
I'll second. Joanne White?
All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unfinished business.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So under unfinished business tonight, we've got the Community Member Recognition Program. This is a program that we've started the process a few months ago. We're still kind of working through it. At the December meeting, we had a discussion about an application form, and staff took your recommendations, and tonight we're presenting you with a draft form of an application or nomination form. So I'm just looking for some feedback so that I can provide staff details on what we need to change or correct or add, delete, et cetera.
I did go through this, and it looked pretty good. It's not too confusing. It's pretty down to the point. I did have a question on number 4, where it says, must have performed services within the past 24 months to the Sebastian community on a voluntary basis above and beyond what may be required as part of his or her employment. Does this include city employees at all?
No, it would not include city employees because it's strictly volunteer.
Okay. Do they volunteer for extra things that we could nominate them? Or is that a conflict?
Yeah, I mean, I would try to stay away, but if someone has gone above and beyond in a Little League program, tackle football program, Shrimp Fest, Clam Bake, something like that, if we have an employee who's done it on this, outside of their normal working hours and committed a lot of time and effort to it, then I think that could be considered on an individual basis.
So as long as it's not linked into their job as they're working?
Correct.
Okay.
I have what, this was great, you put together from like 5 or 6 forms that we had so much discussion about. Question number 4, to what extent has the individual's efforts been previously recognized by the community? I'm not sure I care about that. I think if there's someone totally involved in the community and has done a lot of things in relation to parks and recreation and worked with our kids and helped bring the community along, if they've been recognized by the Lions Club or whatever, I actually would like to strike that.
Okay.
Because I think some folks just give a lot of themselves and could be deserved to be recognized by our committee and city council despite receiving other awards.
And does it really matter if they've been recognized before for other community projects?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I agree with that. Do you guys?
What do you guys think?
Anybody have any comments on that?
Are we looking in at doing that, this is gonna, if we're okay with this today, is this something we're looking at doing, like, starting soon?
So what we would do is if we can get tentative approval tonight on a form, we'll bring it back for final approval at the next meeting, and then also a procedure and formal process of how we're gonna move forward with this, with anticipation that after the next meeting, we could notice it, and depending on which time frame we go with, whether we want to look to recognize someone around July 4th parade type situation, or if we want to just take it to the Christmas parade situation, we could do that, and we would just go based on what we approve. So we'll discuss all the timelines and everything at the next meeting once we have the form approved.
And the judging committee,
So that would all be discussed at the next meeting. We would come up with, it would involve more than likely staff, and then one member of the committee. Due to sunshine laws, we can't really discuss business outside of this. So it would be one person from the committee, and then even if we wanted to have someone from the community or a couple members of the community, we could do that as well.
okay.
So
So,
is it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion that we delete question 4 on this 2-page form and approve the rest, which has the, pretty much the qualifiers, 1 through 5, the volunteer and the person that is recommending them for this award, and questions 1, 2, 3. So I move that we accept this form minus number 4.
No comment, go ahead.
No comment.
Oh, okay, do I have a motion on that?
She made a motion.
A
That was
second?
the motion.
Anybody?
Who second Ms. Drumhill's motion?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, public input on this item.
Oh, that's right.
Public input.
On this item.
Only on this item.
Okay, public input on this item. This is an item that was for recognition of people that contribute to what's going on in the Park and Rec. We've had a discussion on it for about 6 months now, I guess. So we'd like to start recognizing people that are contributing to us.
And they get to be in the parade.
There's none. Okay, I see no public comment. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Nobody has raised their hand.
No. No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item is
Public.
public input then, I guess, right? Public input. Anybody have anything they would like to bring up?
This would be
You-
Come up.
So we have public input now for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay, I was just going to say that I can barely hear what you're saying. I don't know if there's a volume control or...
Is this any better?
Please make sure the green light is on.
Okay,
Hey,
thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, my name is Daniel Brejo, and I've been a Sebastian resident for about 2 years.
Excuse me, sir, would you spell your last name, please?
It's A-B-R-A-H-A-O.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my partner, Francis Papineau.
Yes, it's Francis. And thank you. Hi, everybody. And I've been resident of Sebastian since '06. '04. Go ahead, Daniel, is going to present.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. We would like to submit a proposal for the use of the tennis courts for the creation of a tennis program here in Sebastian. It will be the Shark Tennis Program. I've been a tennis player most of my life, a former Division I college tennis player, former tennis pro as well, and just really interested in starting a more formal program here for young children and for adults as well. And this will be a partnership with the WIN International Tennis Academy that's based out of Brazil, and that's where I grew up, and that's where I learned how to play tennis. And just I was really excited when I moved here and found out about these two wonderful facilities that we have here in town, which is obviously here, Friendship Park and Schumann, and just feel like we could really create something special here with that facility. And we have Francis. He will be our mental trainer. He has a lot of experience working with the high-level athletes as well.
And what are your thoughts? What are you looking for? I'm not quite sure. Just what would your program be?
I'm sorry.
What would your program, what is it that you would like to see Sebastian do or with this program?
Well, I mean, honestly, we would be the ones, I guess, doing that, just have the ability to use the tennis courts to create that program. That's basically. I mean, we looked into it, and the city has great facilities, but there's not a formal program like lessons for children and for adults and things like that. So we would like to offer that a formal tennis program where kids can grow up and learn the game, and adults can play, and eventually this could lead into hosting tournaments here as well. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be one of the people working in the courts?
Yes, sir. Yes. I mean, it wouldn't be just me. We would put together a team of tennis pros and coaches.
One of the things that I was curious about is it looked like expansive time elements of utilization of the tennis courts where they would not be available to the public coming through. So how do you envision that ramping up from start? Because I think that will be a concern.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a very valid question. I guess we would need to understand, what are the hours that they're commonly used and probably work around those. And even during program hours, we would look into leaving some of the courts available for general public use.
So I saw in your proposal that you had some specific program hours. I'm not sure if that was based on just experience or time or Florida heat,
Sure.
Some of those other things. But one of my questions would be, for utilization of our courts, would your program be able to work around the busy utilization times that have already been identified for tennis court usage and work your program around those?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are just a general template, but obviously we would be flexible and try to work around those hours, to especially try to use it during times when they're not being mostly used, which I imagine is probably early in the morning and then early evening, right? That's probably when they're the busiest because of the weather and when people are not at work.
Season versus non-season,
Sure.
There's lots and lots of variables
factors.
and utilization.
And then Brian, with a group like this, they would be paying into the city for court usage, wouldn't that be?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is very preliminary. Obviously, it's just being introduced in public input tonight, so I'm not going to comment too much on it. Once it's formally proposed to the committee and then the committee makes their recommendation of yes or no, it would then have to go to city council and a formal contractual obligation. and follow that process along as well.
I do have a bias, truthfully. I've been involved in tennis for about 40 years, and I would love to see programming here. And quite frankly, your proposal is very, very impressive, but it also has a lot of questions in there. And people you work with, it's pretty impressive, but I found in my years in tennis, I see names thrown around a lot about I work for this person and that person. I've been blessed to be able to bring a pro and college players. I can't say I've never taken credit or I never put it on my resume because I think one of the tennis pros, his father contributed a lot more than I did, and I just reinforced what he was telling them, and he made number 7 in the world. And I have a college NCAA clay court champion that gave me one of my first lessons about 35 years ago, and I was instructing him. I was part of my son's, the John Denise School of Tennis. I was the other John Denise. That was my son's business. And I was doing his beginner classes, and I gave instructions, and he sat there and said, well, coach, we should do this and everything. And I said, no, we're going to do it this way. But I learned at that point that we have to do something new. We're going to have to break these classes up because he's right, but what we were trying to do was right. So I don't know if we have conversations. I mean, I'm proud of the people I'm work with, but I'm a lot prouder than you get invited to weddings and graduations, and I think those are just as important as who the people that you worked with that were lucky enough to be, make an advance. Today, I'm going to a doctor who was one of my tennis players during the 20 years I coached at Sebastian High School. So he is now my doctor. Quite frankly, I'm just more proud of him than some of my tennis success. I didn't see that kind of stuff in here. Very impressive. But I do think if you're going to make a commitment to the city, it's a big commitment. I think the city, I would hope, would make concessions to the people that are willing to make that investment. But going into school programs, I mean, are you familiar with the FACA, the Florida Athletic Coaches Association? Have you contacted them to see what sources? Are you willing to volunteer your time? And when you get old, you get more questions than answers, and right now I stopped counting at 6,895, so I won't get into those questions now, but I would like to spend more time because I am impressed. My own bias, I like to see tennis grow in this area, but I'd like to see working with somebody young like you that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 35 years from now, you're going to enjoy the blessings that I enjoyed.
Can I ask you, what is the name of your organization?
This organization that we're associated with is called the WIN International Tennis Academy. Our program here, we would name it the Shark Tennis Program. We don't currently have an organization. This is obviously a very early stage, but that's what we would like to name it. Just because it's Sebastian's Shark,
Yeah.
I think it would have an appeal here.
And this is a for-profit that you're doing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, does anyone else have questions? I think because it's not on the agenda, I think this is something that we can go back and read about. And I don't have any other questions.
I'd like to make a motion that we invite these gentlemen back and as an agenda item on our next meeting, if we could put them on the March agenda so that if there's more questions, you can study it a little bit more, we can make some questions, and if we choose to take the committee recommends any action, we can do, we can announce it to the public, so other people could come and talk yay, nay, that might presently have an interest in the tennis courts, and we can move it from there. So my motion is that we place them on the March agenda for further questions and public comment.
Do we have a second on that?
And I think because we need to get input from the staff also about the courts and the amount of usage and times, because that's a big thing right there. I mean, if it might be a great program, but if it's pushing out the people who are the regular people working at the times that you want to be there, we have to consider that. So I'd like some input from your office to let us know what your thoughts are about that also, because you're probably more in tune to the usage of the courts at different times and months.
So I'll be prepared for that at the next meeting.
All right.
Okay, we do have a second. Is there any comment from the,
So you don't necessarily have to have a formal motion. You guys can just have you have approval to put it on the next agenda, and we'll put it on the next agenda.
all those in favor, aye? Aye, okay. Gentlemen, we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is, okay, do we have any more public input on any? Okay, gentlemen?
We'd like to introduce a request for...
Could you bring your names, please?
John Draw, and I'm resident here of Sebastian.
D-R-A-W?
D-R-A-W-E. And I've got some handouts here, if you want me to do that now.
Yeah, so you can hand it to each one of the committee members, but make sure Ms. Cram gets a copy for the record.
All right.
And are you going to speak too, sir? Would you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Lawrence Boswell, and that's John Draw. We both are here for the same reason, and it's concerning the boat ramp area. We're both sailors, and sailboats are quite different for a launch ramp area than power boats. Power boats are like a car. They can just back out and they're gone. It takes us a lot longer to set up. We have to get the boat turned around into the wind so we can raise the sails. And if the wind isn't in the direction that favors us with the existing dock, the long dock like at Main Street, then we end up getting plastered up against the dock and hard to get out of there, and it's not easy. You'll notice on the papers that you have, we need more room to operate. Our boats are kind of like paddle boards or kayaks, where no impact on the environment. And the best suited place that we can think of to launch our boats would be where the kayak launch area is already. There's lots of room there, so after we get our boats rigged, we can sail out, because we have to tack, and there isn't a lot of room where the power boats are, and then there's all these power boats around us. Probably half of them don't know we have the right of way because we're restricted in our ability to maneuver. So we're asking to see if it's possible for us to launch from the same area that the kayaks launch from.
Are you talking about at Riverview Park where,
Yes.
by the statue around that corner where the kayaks go off?
Yes.
And then what would you be using how do you get the sailboats?
Well, our sailboats I have a 16-foot boat, he has a 16-foot boat. They're both on trailers. They're non-motorized, and we'd back it down into the water, just put it up on the beach like the way they launch Hobie Cats, and go park our trailer, and then we rig the boat, and then we sail away. What we have to deal with now is tying up the ramp for a fair amount of time, because we have to have the bow facing into the wind to raise our sails, and meanwhile the power boaters are getting impatient. It just ties the limited ramps up that we have.
So your trailer, what do you mean non-motorized? When the boat's on a trailer, Are you you can't hand?
We don't
push?
have outboard motors that run our boats. They're
No,
sailboats.
no, but the trailer itself, you have to use a truck or something?
Oh, yeah, we
to back
back
it up?
our trailer to the water and then we launch our
I
boats.
think, personally, I know that we have kayakers out there using and launching there, and there's so much foot traffic and people there. So you're talking about taking a truck and backing a trailer up, unloading, and then pulling back out?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Isn't that what they do with the kayaks?
Many
No.
times they do.
Are they supposed to be using motorized? I thought it was
No.
carts and hand to do
So
the kayaks.
in regards to kayaks and canoe launch at Riverview Park, they are allowed to pull into the grass area, but then they unload from there and carry it across the sidewalk to the launch area. Or some of them have wheels setups that they can drag it, but they either carry it or drag it across the sidewalk down to the waterfront area there.
So they're hand moving it from the grass over to the water?
From the grass area across.
But
yes.
you're talking about actually using a vehicle to bring the trailer
Correct.
across the sidewalk on. I'm kind of nervous about that, just,
Right. Are you talking about bringing it across the sidewalk or
Yeah.
just into the grass area?
It would cross the sidewalk. They didn't used to have those wood barricades there and people would launch before. And then they put the barricades up and now we can't launch our boats. And there's no place in Sebastian to launch our type of sailboats that's friendly to the boat and friendly to us. Because it's really a workout to try to launch at the existing boat ramp. And plus the power boaters, they use their motors to power the boat onto the trailer and off of the trailer, and it's pushed all the sand up. And yesterday I launched my boat, my trailer's at like a 20-degree angle, and now I have a new problem trying to pull my boat out of the water. It's not even on the rollers. So we really don't have a proper environment for launching and retrieving our boats.
where do other places launch sailboats? I mean, other cities and towns, they must have a boat launch that they're launching like what we have.
The closest launch that is available to us is the Grant launch. That really is
Brevard County.
and they do have an area where you can back sailboats and Hobie Cats with the dollies
It's like a beach.
across the sand. That's right next to there. It would be like our launch ramps, but with a big sandy area right adjacent to it. So it is pretty convenient. But we would sure appreciate having the same thing in Sebastian. Also, your existing watercraft police officer is very, very much in favor of this.
Bill Jersick, he likes the idea.
Is there any way we can, where our boat launch is now on Main Street, do we have enough room in years to come? I'm not talking about next year, but in years to come, would that be something that we might be able? The only other thing is, I'm talking too much here, but how many people actually use it? And that's where we
Well-
come down to that when you come to something like this, we have to see an importance of use. If it's only a few people and we're putting in a lot of money to do that, the same as with pickleball courts or the skateboard, we need to know that it's something that a lot of people are going to use. There's interest in it.
We may be at the chicken or the egg thing, because it's such a workout to try to launch a boat now. I can see why a lot of people would do it once, and then they say, forget this. My boat's all banged up from trying to launch and retrieve at this ramp area. And a week ago, I tried to take off, and I got blown down onto the boat on the north ramp. And then from there, I pushed off of him. Now I'm plastered on the dock, and I had to hand over hand myself halfway down that big, long dock so that I could get out of there. And there's a whole bunch of power boats there waiting to get out of the water that I had to try to get through. There is about 300 feet of space in front of the old motel that's right next to that ramp that's got palm trees on it. That was one idea, but I heard that's designated for a future park.
One of the questions I would have is, what would be the maximum size of a non-motorized sailboat that you would envision wanting to launch from this site?
There's a popular Hobie Cat that's 18 feet.
That's big.
And that would be about the maximum that you could launch by hand or non-motorized to be able to put it in the water without the aid of a motor and also retrieve it. I also want to say too that your auxiliary, the Sebastian Inlet Power Squadron has a sailing group, and from the education standpoint, they were very interested in this because they said now that we can do adult and sailing education with possibly the teaching in the yacht club and have actually a ground area where they could do training too.
I think that the two of you gentlemen, this is very interesting because I've never seen, I'm on that park walking all the time and I never see anything about a kayak. Now I know what your dilemma is. However, I think we're in the same situation as the discussion about the tennis program. And that would be that you gentlemen need to be placed in as an agenda item so that we can talk about it, get more information about it, let our director, Brian, kind of gather some information to bring back to the committee. And you also might want to get the folks that support you to come, because I think it will be a utilization thing. I mean, there's a lot of pieces of
We
the
would be happy to do that, and that's really why we came here tonight. But what we're asking for right now is the changing of some signage.
We cannot do any action item with public input, sir.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, and we would be happy to do that ourselves because it's not hard to make a sign. But that's all we really need right now, and we could be using it today.
We can't.
I'm not asking you for that. I'm just telling.
This is something that the city has to.
So
Brian.
it's a public input item, and I'm not going to, as I did on the previous one, I'm not going to go into a long discussion on it. It's public input.
That's fine.
I've spoken with Mr. Boswell. We met here at City Hall. He came in and spoke with me. And we discussed both locations at that time, in front of the motel and also at Riverview Park. The old motel area is an area we are looking at developing into a swing park type situation. It also, entrance and exits right onto Indian River Drive. So it's not conducive to anything to this nature with having vehicles per se going in and out of that area. And the Riverview Park area, we are currently looking at, staff is looking into that. What we've ran into some issues on right now, and I was hoping to have some answers today and I just haven't gotten them, is the oyster beds that were installed out in the lagoon area there. I'm trying to get more information on that, and that's why I have not provided any details on yes, no, maybe so on this item. But that's where we're currently at regarding the Riverview Park area. So currently there will be no sign changing. I'll state that from a staffing standpoint currently. It is something we're looking at. By all means, if the committee wants to have them come back at the next meeting, we'll see if I have answers by then.
We'd be glad to.
And we can have the discussion and you all can discuss it at that point, and I should have more input from a staff standpoint and discussions with staff from at that time.
Because we don't even know if those oyster beds are live or working or anything.
Correct. And
I wonder when I walk there every day, when I look at that and wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that there's definitely oysters out there. I know for a fact there are. I just don't know where they did the plantings and how it's kind of moved around. Okay. You know, you got to remember the other thing, and it's something that staff's going to consider. That's a heavily pedestrian area. There are a lot of people that walk in that park on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So that's another consideration that we've got to look at in regards to the sidewalk area there. That's just things to consider. It's not any foresight from me at this point. It's just stuff to consider.
Okay. Maybe you could just check into it and see if it's something that's feasible, and when we find out if it's something that is feasible.
If it is something that's feasible,
then get it on the agenda.
That we can discuss, I'll have it on the next agenda. If it's something that's not to be considered, then they'll be informed as well.
But by doing all this work, we have to know that there's people that would use it. And that's where I always come,
There's two of us.
There's two, and I'm sorry, two is not going to be enough.
I didn't want to bring the Mongolian horde tonight.
I know, but I'm just saying, and that's when things are brought up to us, we have to see that there's a need and an interest. And so before we start doing a lot of work on research and all this stuff, I think that's where we need to have you, if you've got peoples and they want to come and speak to this, and we can see the numbers and their concerns, then I think we should go out and start pursuing Oyster Beds and all this other stuff.
Is there no other property on the river that could be available?
Well, that's something I think, first, I personally think first we need to see if there's a real interest in it, because it takes a lot of time for them to do research and to do all those things to see what we can do. But if we don't have enough public interest in it, it's not worth their time, the park's time.
Understand.
To start researching all kinds of stuff, because we don't have enough people that we feel it's going to serve.
I've spoken to the power boaters at the boat ramp several times, and they're all for it because we're on overload.
Yeah, but they're a different group. They might be for it, but they're not using it.
No, they're for it because we're not holding them up.
Oh,
They get rid
well,
of
I
us.
can't.
They're always cutting in front of me, even though it takes me the same amount
I
of
know.
time to retrieve my boat
Right.
as them.
Right.
But they'll back their boat down, blocking me. I've had jet skis go right on the concrete ramp where I can't get out.
Right, and I understand that, and it doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Can we move on, though? I think, Brian, you are going to look into this, and if you want to attend next month,
Okay.
personally, I would
Fine.
like to
But here's the
hear
thing
this.
I'm saying.
There's no
But
sense, there's just no
It's not on the
sense.
agenda right now.
No,
so-
but if it's not on the agenda next time, we can't discuss it anyway. So what I'm saying is, instead of Brian's office doing all this research, we need to hear from the public to see them come in and say, this is why we need this.
And that's a bigger question than you're talking about, and I don't think that this time, it's not on the agenda. I wouldn't mind that on the agenda, because I would like to talk about that. I know time's a precious thing, but if we're going to accept that responsibility, I want to listen to everybody.
And they can be on
that
the
comes up.
agenda for maybe next month, but it would be that this group, your sailboat group club, it wants to bring up this. But to put it on the agenda that we're going to research about doing a launch,
Brian,
we
can I
can't go to
move on
that
now?
step. We have
Can
to
I,
have, yes.
Joan?
I think that it doesn't make any sense to have something on an agenda and have people come and to speak on it if it's not going to be allowed, period. So if you find out if it's not going to be allowed, then maybe we can try to locate another spot. But there's no sense in having it on the agenda and having people come to talk about something that we can't do.
Would it help us to have signatures from people, or?
I can assure you, we can provide this, our support, but you tell
I
us
think
what you tell us what the next move is, and we'll do it.
I think the only thing about having it on an agenda is the public notice piece, because as someone that walks a lot of sunrises there is an awful lot of pedestrian traffic, and
Right, so
I'm
that's what I'm
envision-
saying.
Yeah,
They
and
may
I-
say this, they may say we can't do it there, period. So why get people all up and coming out to a meeting just to hear that we can't do it? So if we
Because those are
can't
the
do it,
people
then
that
get
will
it on
get
the
really,
agenda.
really upset if they don't have any type of notification. If we provide notification, at least they have an opportunity.
Wouldn't that be on the next agenda? Then we're going to try and find some, on an agenda after, so that we can notify them to come out and see if we can find another spot.
I'm just wondering,
I
well,
didn't think nobody proposed bringing this on the agenda for next month, right? Am I correct that you were just going to look into this here?
no.
I mean, I'm already looking into it. I mean, it's something that I'm already looking into, based on my conversation with Mr. Boswell. I think at this time, you know, I continue what I'm doing, and then I'll follow up with them. And if it's something that, I mean, to be quite honest, if it's something that we'll approve it.
But I'm going to ask you,
know, so it-
as a city, are we liable? I mean, I just can't envision vehicles backing up, unloading, where people are running and walking and playing. I'm thinking as a city, you would say, no, that's not possible because we're liable for any kind of people that aren't watching what's going on. It's not that you're not looking for them, but people do weird things. So as a city, can we just say that location is really not feasible because of the liability?
Yes.
Okay, so that kind of answers the question on that, having that location. But if you're maybe pursuing something else, I mean, we could, if that's what you want to come back and do that. But I'm just saying, like, when we went through the dog park, we had a few people speak on it, but until we know it's something that's going to get a lot of usage for the amount of money that the city has to put on, that's where we have to have that input from the public. But that's why I'm asking, is this even something about the location because of the liability? And
So it is something that's currently being considered as far as liability reasons, because I think that is something.
I can't imagine that the
That
city
isn't,
would-
that is a specific reason we could say no to this
Okay.
location, yes.
So that's kind of, that was my thought. I didn't think the city
Okay.
would let that go through.
People do wheel their kayaks across there now, and I wouldn't want to get
They
hit.
drive up to.
I wouldn't want to get hit by a trailer or.
We've been talking about this for almost 15 minutes. Can we move
Well,
on, please?
But the thing is, we don't want them to come back with,
They can come back and public input anytime they want.
okay.
So are we leaving this, Brian, next month? You'll kind of give us an update because you've already spoken to these gentlemen and you have their information and you'll bring back what, if we
If it's on
should
the
go
agenda.
on to an agenda item for it.
Correct. If I have anything to bring back, I'll bring it back next month.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you. It's something to think
Okay,
about.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Is there any other comments from the audience? Okay, what's next on the agenda then? We went through Okay, pickleball number 9. Ryan?
This was a request from Mr. Morrow, so I'll let him kind of take the lead on this one.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Thank you, members of the committee. We love our pickleball courts. Most of the people that play there love the fact that it's free. It's no charge. It's good exercise. The courts are almost two years old now. I think next month they'll be 2 years old. Everything was great from the beginning, but we seem to have run into a bit of a problem. Let me explain. There's 8 pickleball courts. In most cases in the morning, you'll find 4 people on each court. That's a total of 32, actively playing a game. You may have anywhere from 40 to 50 plus people sitting there waiting in addition to those 32, I'm sorry. You'll have 40 or 50 plus people at the courts looking to play. So when 32 are already playing, you've got at least a dozen or more sitting and waiting. And the problem that we run into is earmarked on this sign, which I gave you all a copy of, and the arrow points to it, where it says, please limit play to 1 hour while others are waiting. The top of that sign says, please be courteous and respectful to others. Now what's been happening is most people will get on a court, play a game, and get off the court and let 4 other people come on. We've run into instances where some people get on a court and they defer to the sign saying, well, we get an hour to play. And when there's 4 people on the court claiming the same thing, now that's 4 hours, and they're taking up a whole court, and there's still people waiting to play, okay? They're public courts, they're open to all. Unlike tennis that requires reserving court time, as Ms. White had mentioned, there's a lot of public interest in playing at the courts. They're well maintained. The majority of the people are very courteous. They'll play a game, they'll get off, they'll sit, they'll wait, and when the court is open, if it's their turn to play, then they get up and they play again. So I'm asking that we change the sign, and the only thing that needs to change is where it says, please limit play to 1 hour, and change that to please limit play to 1 game while others are waiting. Any discussion, please?
So are you saying that there will be people that will play for 3 hours without coming off the court?
If you want to do public input,
Mr. Chair,
please
Mr.
come
Chair,
up.
please, nothing from the audience. No cheers, no applause, no sighs. It needs to stop.
I'm sorry, did everybody hear that? Thank you.
Okay, it's open to discussion. and this is where the public input comes in on
Not yet.
this part of the agenda.
Oh, not yet.
Okay, we have public input on this then?
Not yet, I think. We have discussion first, don't we?
Okay, discussion.
Where I live, the pickleball is very popular, and they changed the tennis courts, sorry, to pickleball courts, and they had a problem with numbers. So what they did was they bought these additional nets and split the courts to hold twice as many people. Is that an idea that's feasible?
No, because the courts are set up, there's 8 specific courts. So you can't take, like a tennis court, you can make into 2 pickleball courts.
Yeah.
But a pickleball court, you can't break it down any further than what it is.
There's less room on the pickleball court.
Yeah, there's no other room on there.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion?
Well, I feel like the city has made these, the Parks Department, they've made these rules. They researched it, for me, I think that it should be up to them to decide on the rules. I don't feel like that's my position.
What we're doing here is we're recommending to Brian that the signs be changed from the 1 game to, from the 1 hour to the 1 game. What's happened is since the courts first opened up, more and more people are coming out to play. Okay, it's not like it was at the beginning. You can get out there, get on the court, play your game, and you're good. If there's nobody waiting, you stay on the court. Now, people are waiting to play. And we have some courts, I don't know any names, I don't really care about any names, but I know at least in one instance that I went onto a court when people were done and they said, oh no, we have an hour to play. And it was myself and at least 8 or 9 other people still waiting to get on the court. So it's not the majority, it's the minority, I think, that are deferring to this rule that's on the sign. I actually mentioned this to Brian going back well over a year, that really it needs to be changed, as at that time there were more people coming out to play. And it's not, as some people think, people from Bureau or people from here. It doesn't make any difference where they come from. It's a public courts, and anybody can play. And everybody should be given the chance to play, and not be limited to an hour, where somebody says, well, I have an hour because that's what the sign says. And that's my position.
One of my questions would be, I've found that life is full of rules, and you can't fix rude by changing a rule. So my question would be, if folks are going to say 1 hour means 4 hours because there's 4 people on the court, obviously that's unreasonable, but how would you enforce? If we changed it, how would it be enforced?
One way that you would enforce it is that everybody has to show the same courtesy on the court. I've played pickleball for probably 8 years now. I played down south, I played here, I played up north. No matter where I've played, there is no place that has had a group of people get on one court and say, well, we're not getting off because we're allowed to play for an hour. People understand that they're courteous. They know that they're not going to wait that long. Games only last 10, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, really, at the most. And then people getting off the court, people getting on the court. It's more a matter of courtesy and respect. Okay? Now, I had a discussion with Brian about this, and I said to him, I said, I could call you and ask you to come down and speak with these folks, whoever they may be, and what they're going to do is say, well, the sign says. So what needs to happen is the sign needs to change.
I read an email yesterday, and I forgot the name, but somebody from the pickleball courts. He says this only happens during the winter months, that it isn't a problem. you disagree with that person then.
And that's my question. How often
How
does that
often?
happen?
Is there a problem?
Right now, it's happening every morning.
Is it the same people?
It's the same, pretty much the same group of people who show up. Of course, there's some days that some people don't come and other people are there that we haven't seen before. But it being a public court, anybody can come and play. So you never know how many folks you're gonna have in a day. I don't think I got that same email about the time element.
Right.
It seems to be mostly only in the morning from around 8-ish until around 10-ish. I don't think it happens after that because you drive by the courts and you see very less cars there. That means courts are open. I'm not sure what happens at night because I can't see and I don't play at night. And
But my other question is, and maybe I'm having flashbacks of the dog park. Our job's not to monitor the dog park and control the people and they're smoking, you're not smoking, you need to do this. That's how I'm kind of feeling about the pickleball court. Our job's really not to monitor it. And even with the rule, if we were to do a change, does that mean that those people are going to change? I mean, you can put rules up, but if they don't want to follow them, they don't have to. But I don't see us patrolling pickleball courts because, and I wish everybody would follow the rules, but I don't know. Just don't see us monitoring that and sending people out.
I think most people would agree with you. I think what he's suggesting, though, is that he believes, and that's something that I think Bryant has to consider, that changing to that one game for 1 hour. I don't play pickleball personally. I think it's an old people's game, and I'm only in my 80s, so I'm not ready for it yet. But it's if that one game is going to change the rule, I don't know. But I mean, we sit there and make rules and everything, but we're human beings, and sometimes the rules that we make, everybody doesn't recognize the same way. I mean, is it a big cost to change that? I would ask Brian, is it a big cost to change it from 1 hour to one game? And would the pickleball people believe that's going to solve the problem? Then I think problem's solved, and I think we're better off solving problems. And
whether people follow the rule or not remains to be seen.
Right.
Okay. But you can't go to the people that run the court, which is the city of Sebastian, specifically Brian Benton, Leisure Services, and say, well, these people are playing, they won't get off the court. Okay? And he'll say, as I agree with, well, you really can't do anything because that's what the sign says. Okay, so what we're talking about is not changing the whole sign. We're talking about an overlay to put on the sign.
Yeah.
To change it from hour.
Well, I have a question. What do we do in tennis? Do we reserve time in tennis courts?
Yes.
At certain times, not all the time.
Not all the time, right.
The Friends of the Court manage those courts during the morning hours, and they play, actually, they'll sit there with 4 courts, and they will just have them play the doubles on those courts, and then after every game, let's say there's 5 of us, the first 5 of us are playing, and we're rotating around, and the game's over, you would go out, we would all move a spot, and then the 5th person comes in and plays there. So
can something like that be done
they solve
with
the rule
pickleball?
themselves, and that's why I'm a believer of, letting the people, give them we have to consideration. These gentlemen are going to have to give consideration to what they're doing to the community.
But what I'm saying, could that be done with pickleball?
I think it could, except
It's the same thing.
I think
the morning hours,
that 1
anyway.
hour is
You're
the problem.
You're moving 4 people rather than 1 person. 4 people are rotating off and then back on, as opposed to 1 person and 5 people playing tennis.
So are you saying you think it would solve the problem putting please limit play to 1 game?
when others are waiting.
while others are waiting.
Right, I mean, if there's nobody waiting, stay on the court all day if you want. That's not a problem. But when you go in the morning, and I invite any of you all
I've been there in the
go,
mornings, it's busy.
okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't park in the parking lot because it's full.
And
You
that's
gotta
good,
get out
right.
on the grass. There's that many people there.
Why does everybody have to go at the same time?
Because it's,
Because it's hot later.
and also because I think they make groups friends and everybody shows up like, I'll see you at 8 o'clock and okay, and so it's kind of a social thing too. It's not, they're not
I
just
get it, but if you
plain.
know that there's.
Brian, am I allowed to ask you your opinion on this, or am I out of order?
Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to chime in, I will.
I would appreciate your comment, yes, sir.
So this has been kind of an ongoing thing since, I mean, it's probably been a few months, honestly. We've gotten numerous emails. I have personally met with 5 groups that play pickleball at the courts, not 5 individuals, 5 groups that I've personally met with. And, you know, to begin with, I was thinking that we need to go away from the 1 hour. That was my initial thought process. Before I even met with anyone, I'm like, you know what? There's a better system. I've experienced it before. In my mind, I was thinking that it was better. It's a paddle system. Basically, they come up, and if 2 people or 4 people already on the court, you take your 4 paddles and put them in the box, and then you're the next 4 to go onto the court. But then in thinking about it, everywhere I've done it, and it was brought up in some of the meetings with the groups that I've had, there's always been someone to kind of oversee that process. So when you talk about the Sebastian Friendly Tennis Club, and I hadn't considered it until tonight when we talked about it, they have someone that's organizing and managing it. They have someone that says, hey, Mr. Denise, it's your turn up on this court. With 8 courts, and you have a paddle system, or if you have a rotation system, who's to say, well, court 1 finishes their game first, but nobody's really paying attention to court 1, and then court 2 finishes. I just think you open up to other questions, people moving people's paddles, people moving the next button in that instance. I will state, and Mr. Morrow is correct, in that the hour has been, for lack of a better term, and it's not a really, it's been misused. I met with one group and they had misinterpreted it. And that group came out and honestly, they asked me the question and I said, it's 1 hour from the moment the first person steps on the court. It's not 1 hour from when the 8th person joins your group. So they were misinterpreting the rule. And so one of the things that I discussed with them was it's 1 hour from the moment you step on the court as the first person with your group. So I know that that was misinterpreted, and I'm sure it's in other groups and other people that I haven't met with, they're probably interpreting it the same way. But I think, you know, and I've considered it, I've sat on this for probably a month now, Mr. Morrow. I mean, I think one of the first groups I met with was probably over a month ago. And I thought at that point there would be some quick changes that were going to be made. And then I started getting feedback from many other people. And honestly, they're probably about 50-50 split with changing it and not changing it. And I'm just giving you my side. It's not my opinion at this point. It's just 50-50 split based on what I've heard. Now, I know there's plenty of people I haven't heard from, and I think, you know, some people have probably withheld it, trying not to bombard me with emails or phone calls, and I appreciate that. But I think you could probably add a number to each side and come out to where it may favor one side or the other at the end of the day. It's a staffing issue. I think, you know, I've told them all freely, if someone gets out of control or if there's some abusive language or stuff like that, they can call my cell phone. I told every single group that they could call me. And I would either go out there or have a staff member go out there. But that also brings in, if I'm in a meeting like I am now, I'm not answering my phone. So that it's not a perfect situation to deal with that. The last thing I'll say, and I said this to a couple of council members because they received quite a few of the emails as well. And their thought process was that people just have to learn to get along. And if they can't do that, well, then we shut the courts down. That was coming from council. And so what my suggestion to do, and I been planning to do this even before it was asked to be put on the agenda for tonight, was to set up maybe a community meeting out at Pickleball. And I'll put myself out there in front of everybody and just have a real discussion with everyone out there, explaining the rule, explaining the process, explaining how people need to act, be courteous, cordial. We have a camera. I can't hear what's being said, but I think that might go a decent way to appease people and get them to realize that the city is now going to be watching. I've tried to go out a few times and observe myself. However, it just hasn't worked in my schedule. I get caught in somewhere else. So that's where I currently am. I have not made a final decision on which way I was going to go, yes or no. So, you all can make a recommendation, but I have been sitting on it for about a month, thinking about ways to go.
I have a question. I had company here a few months ago, and she was excited to play in the pickleball courts, and I've never played, so I tried it with her. What if you're not playing a game? If I wanted to go to the court and her and I are practicing, we could practice for an hour. And I know you're busy in that, but you don't have to be playing a game to be using the courts. So if I wanted to go out there and just practice with a friend or a couple friends, we could do that for an hour. Correct? I mean,
The sign as it stands right now says, yes, you can.
okay.
Okay, but let me ask you this question. If there's you and your friend, and you go to the pickleball court, and you find an open court and there's 50 other people that's playing, are you going to get out there and say, well, we have an hour to play?
I would think I could. I mean, I'm learning how to play pickleball. I'm not going to just, I'm going out there to learn to play.
Right.
And I do see a lot of people, but does that mean that I can't be out there using the courts because they're playing the games? So that becomes a fine thing where they're going to tell me to leave because they're playing a game?
I think we're getting back to your point, being courteous. I mean, if people are
Right.
playing.
And
would
people
you
were
want to
very
go
nice
out and
there.
would you
We were
want to-
practicing and a couple joined us to play, but I could see me practicing for an hour for sure, because I had to run all over and pick up balls and stuff. But I'm not playing a game. So I just was thinking about that. It's not only people playing games, it's people that are going there to practice or to hit balls.
Let me take it one step further, okay? Just chew on this a little bit. Right now, I've yet to see any singles play out there. 2 people on a court, okay? So let's suppose just for a moment, 16 people got on the courts, all 8 of them, 2 on each court, and they said, okay, well, we're going to play for an hour. And now you got 30 some odd people sitting around waiting. What do you do? It's a public court.
Make another
People, I
sign.
mean, you're not
I'd come back
reserving
in
the
an
court.
hour.
You're not paying for the court. Okay? It's just kind of it's a courteous thing that I've seen the whole time I've been playing this game, is that when people get done with the game and there's folks waiting, they'll get off the court.
Right.
And they're going to come back on in the next 15 or 20 minutes.
But if I'm practicing, I'm not going to get off and get back on. I'm going to play until I'm done practicing.
Well,
I'm just throwing it out because I was just
understand.
thinking about that. And we played in the morning because it was cooler.
Right.
And there was a large group and they were very friendly. And actually, after we were done practicing for a while, we joined and played a couple friendly games. But myself, I need the practice. And so I would be out there, but I don't feel like I should give up the court because they're all standing there waiting to play a game. So it could be either way. Once you say, please limit play to 1 hour or 1 game. I don't know how you're going to do the wording, but anyway, I didn't mean to throw that in, but I thought about that.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So just popped in my head too, a question, Mr. Morrow. Is it like 4 courts that are staying there for an hour? Or is it just 1 court or 2 courts or all 8 courts?
No.
I don't think I've asked that in any of my meetings, to be honest, so.
At the most, I've seen 2 courts.
2 courts that will stay for an hour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not that they would necessarily stay for an hour, but if you went over and asked them if they were going to get off, and then they would tell you, no, we got the court for an hour.
Okay.
So you can do 1 or 2 things. You can sit there and get into an argument with them, or you can say, okay, I'll go wait. I'll get on a different court.
Thank you.
Okay, any more comments on this? We go on to next on the agenda.
Public input.
How about public input? Is there any public opinion or statements you'd like to make? Yes, ma'am.
Please give your name and spell it.
Eileen Hanley, Eileenhanley, Holden Avenue, Sebastian.
Thank you.
What a problem we have. People want to use the water. People want to use the tennis courts. People want to use the pickleball courts. The problem is my group, your group, their group. Everybody is against each other. We should all play well in the playground. Bottom line, respect, inclusion, and not exclusion. So there was a lot said about pickleball and tennis and everything. Can't we play well together? As far as practicing pickleball, I was at the pickleball courts yesterday. I was teaching 3 new people who had never played before. It happens that there's a round robin group on Sunday, not posted. We got to the courts, we played more than an hour. I met with the person who runs the round robin group. I said, hey, I'm teaching these people how to play. No problem. They let us play, there was enough courts. Problem solved. Communication, respect, friendliness, all these activities, whether it be skateboarding, tennis, be friendly, be respectful, and be courteous. There's not this group and that group. It's the city's courts. You want a court for an hour, pay for it. You play at the clay courts, you pay for it. You reserve it. If you want to exclude yourself from city facilities, reserve it and pay for it. So, I mean, that's bottom line. You know, pickleball, my husband has played tennis. We have played pickleball for a number of years. We fought for a number of years for the pickleball courts not to share them with tennis people because, what, we only have 6 courts? In a town of 25,000 people, 8 courts of pickleball? I'm happy for what we have. But the thing is play in, play nice, meet new people. Most of our friends are pickleball people or people that we enjoy outdoor activities with. Go hiking, don't take up the whole road. That's bottom line, is let's not be decisive. Let's be friendly, let's be social, meet new people, and get your exercise in. So, you know, an hour, an hour, or whatever, all I had to do was to go to the group and say, I'm teaching people. No problem. That's all it took was a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other people from the audience like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am. Oops. Well, there's 2 of you.
Hi, I'm Marguerite Abercrombie. That's Marguerite, Abercrombie. A-B-E-R-C-R-O-M-B-I-E? Correct. Good evening. I just wanted to say a few things about what Mr. Morrow was representing. I think he was skewed a little bit in some of his comments. I apologize, but I do need to speak my time. I'm there in the mornings when he's referring to this. We have played, like he said, in the past 2 years. I've been here, the courts have been here. There's been cordial, no problems at all. Just this past, I'd say January, around the holiday, it got very busy one day. And there was extra people waiting. As he said, I think he said there was 40 or 50, which is totally not correct. Maybe there was about 4 to 8 people waiting, potentially. So, and going by the rules on the court, we do have an hour to play, so we do that. And I think it's been perceived that there's all these people waiting and no one getting time on the court. The most I've ever seen anyone wait is maybe 15 minutes. And that's on a really busy day, meaning when the holidays came, when the snowbirds started coming down. In the past 3 weeks that I've been there, I haven't seen anybody waiting. A group will come off, Mr. Morrow's group, they'll come off, and I'd like to point out, you do know that Mr. Morrow has a group that he plays with, so he's speaking from their perspective, but their group will come off and go right back on another court. They have anywhere from 4 to 6 courts every morning, which is fine, I could care less. My group usually has 1 or 2. We mix in a lot of people. We have a lot of people that show up that don't even know us, that come play with us. We have new people that come and people say, hey, can I play with you? Or you're new. We teach them. We do a lot of that. We have our own set that we may have a couple people waiting to play with on our two, say if we have 2 courts a day, or if we have 1 court, we may have 2 to 4 people waiting to play, and we mix in and out. We prefer to play with our group. We like our group of people. We're all at the same level. Mr. Marr's group has a lot of higher advanced players, and so therefore they tend to play with themselves, which is, again, we don't mind at all. I mean, it has nothing to do with us. We are minding our own business until some of the people decided to start yelling at us about being on the court, not coming off after playing 1 game. So I just want to point out that I think everything's been fine. There's been a couple days in the past, since January, I would say, where there was some people waiting in the morning. But I don't believe they waited more than 15 minutes. And I think that it works fine. I think, majority of the year, courts aren't even busy in the morning, so.
Do you feel the wording needs to be changed then?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think it's perfectly fine. I think, and obviously if there is a ton of people waiting, we would be respectful as well. But I mean, if you have a group, say Mr. Morrow's group, that is using 4 to 6 courts, and they're mixing their people in and out, so they can't mix their people in and out on 2 more courts. I mean, so we can't have a couple courts. I mean, it is about courteousness. I think Eileen said, it is about being courteous and working with each other. And we played cordially. I've been playing there the same amount of time that the pickleball courts have been open. We've been playing cordially with the other groups that come. It's just this past couple months, all of a sudden, we're getting yelled at because we're following the rules, or we're utilizing the rules, because they come off and they might have 8 people waiting because 4 just came off, and they want to use some more courts. So I just don't really see what the big problem is. I think it's gotten blown out of proportion. And, I think majority of the people there are very friendly and very willing to talk to each other and work with each other. A lot of the people from Mr. Marr's group play with our group. A lot of the ladies come and play with us. Again, I think it's been blown out of proportion, and I think that the rules are perfectly fine. So that's my take on it, and I hope that you'll consider keeping it the way it is.
Thank you. Is there another comment? Did I see somebody else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Holly Dill, D-I-L-L, yeah, Roseland Road. I would like to respectfully disagree from the standpoint of there being just a few days. I've been there many days where there are 20, 25 people waiting to play under the pavilion. So
Please, no comments from the audience.
I'll be happy to start keeping track of that, if that would be helpful. I could start writing down if we're going to start getting into a dispute as to the number of days, or the number of people. I guess the only question that I would pose to you would be, what is wrong with saying, please limit play to 1 game when others are playing? What is the downside of that? It's courteous, it's respectful, as Mrs. Hanley just referred to. You step off, you let the other people on if they're people waiting to play. So that would be the question that I would pose to you. What's the downside of doing that? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Yes.
Jenny Sarah N-O? Thank you. I too have been playing on the court since its inception, and these past couple of months it has gotten out of hand. And I guess some people, some groups have gotten a little defensive, you know, when you have people telling you, get off the court, like almost bullying people, get off the court. So, you know, then you tend to get a little defensive when somebody, you know, attacks you. And I agree with Eileen, it should be really a group effort. But, you know, sometimes you get a little defensive and people get very negative towards you. Am I not speaking in the thing? I'm sorry. I'm not used to a microphone. And I've discussed, maybe I'm too short. And like we've talked to Brian about that situation. Generally speaking, we're a small group that plays, and sometimes I feel like we're being overrun by the group that comes on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, because they're a big group. And yes, there's waiting, but Brian can see from his cameras, obviously, there's not 40 or 50 people standing under the pavilion. I think he would notice that if there was. There's not. There's only 2 benches there, pickleball tables, and maybe if they were all sitting at those benches, maybe it'd be like 10, 12 people, if they were all full and squished in together. But, and this winter's snowbird season, it has gotten busier. And what I'm also hoping that those new courts they open in South County Park, they're opening 12 courts there, maybe will help relieve some of this congestion here in Sebastian, because we are a small community. And I know a lot of people who play at different times of the day. I know people who play in the morning, like I do. I know people who play in the afternoon, and I know people who play in the evening. And the only time it's really a problem is like Mr. Morrow said, it's maybe around 9 to 10. It starts getting a little busier. So you have that hour, because some people are leaving at 10, some people are leaving at 9:30, actually. So you do have an influx, people come, people go, so you have that. Now, we did get a clarification from Brian, because we were mistaken about court time, and let me make sure that we're doing the right thing. If you're on a court for an hour, you're on. If you go up to another court, does your hour start again, or it does not? I'm just wanting to know, because I was a little unclear about that.
So your hour begins from the moment the first person steps on a court?
A court.
Okay, on a court.
One court.
Correct, yes, ma'am. So if your group is taking up 2 courts, once your hour is done on the first court, you all can still play on the second one if they showed up later, but then they have their, I don't want to get it, so the hour is there for.
I just wanted to make sure we're doing the right thing.
No,
I
understand. I don't want to get into the hour has to be, you know, it's more, yeah, look, it is a rule, but it's there for people to follow and work together. If people are waiting, it's a little bit, you should give up your court if you've been there an hour, okay, and not just move to another court. If people are waiting, because obviously somebody's on that other court you're referring to. So you give up so court number 1, you showed up at 8 o'clock. Your 4 people play 8 to 9. Your other people show up at 8:30, they've got 4 people. So they've technically got another 30 minutes when you're done on your court. So you give up your court. Now, if they want to share their last 30 minutes with you all and play, you just go back and forth, that's fine, but then their hour's up at 9:30 as well.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? I hope that explains it.
No, I just wanted to get a clarification, because I did discuss that with you, and, you know, because we were actually doing it wrong. So, but my point is, and usually the wait time, even if there are people waiting, it's maybe, like he says, a game is 5 or 10 minutes long, so people are constantly getting on and off the courts. I mean, at least his group is constantly getting on and off the courts. So there's never a long wait time. But I do think things had gotten off to a wrong step this winter when you have certain gentlemen bullying people off the court. I think that created the atmosphere of being defensive, because that's not a good atmosphere to want to play in.
No, it's a game.
Tense,
Thank you. It's a
you
game. We
know.
appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, okay.
So let me clarify something for us up here.
Is there any more from the public? No? Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
when I mentioned earlier that 32 people could be playing, and then I said there's 40 to 50 people there. There's not 40 to 50 people waiting. There's a total of 40 to 50 people. So there may be 8 waiting, there may be 6, there may be 12, 13, 14, okay? I don't think I've ever seen over 50 people there at any one time. Not that I go and try to count, but I have a pretty good idea of the numbers. Also, the young lady that mentioned my group, I don't have a group. I go to play pickleball.
Okay.
I personally don't care who I play with.
I don't think we should get into the
No,
back
I
and
want to
forth.
address something that she said.
But I don't think we should be addressing the...
And I'll make this very brief. But it's about people going to play and playing together and not relying on a sign that says something about an hour that shouldn't have been there from the beginning. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do we want to make any changes on this?
Do we?
Is there any more discussion on the committee on this item?
I myself, because I'm not really from, I think at this point, I'd kind of like to leave it the way it is and see if it'll take care of itself. I'm hoping as adults and people playing together can work it out so we're not having to come back and talk about this again. Maybe we have to, but I think everyone's talking about the same type of thing. Is a word going to make that much difference? I don't know. Myself, I would like to leave it just the way it is and have the group try to work through this. And if it doesn't work out, then we come back and address it maybe another time. That's just my thought.
Kind of feels kind of weird after going through so much to get pickleball courts over there that we're fighting like we're little kids on a schoolyard. And I think that everybody should get along. And I think that the city made that rule for a reason. And I think if it's going to change, that Brian is the one that needs to look into it and see about changing it. But I think it's, yeah, I think it's okay.
I eat pickles. I've never played pickleball, so I really don't have much skin in the game. My gut says leave it alone a little bit because I kind of feel like if a game's 10 or 15 minutes and you never have more than 6 or 8 people waiting, I don't think that's a huge wait. And also I really thought about the whole training somebody where an hour on a court may be very worthwhile for someone that's learning the game. And I'm not sure that that would be disrespectful if they got there and there's only 4 or 8 people waiting and we have all these courts. My gut says leave it alone for a while and let's see how it percolates. And I think it's a fabulous idea for you to kind of try to bring the factions together on the courts and have maybe, come to Jesus talk. And because, you know, the bottom line is that if things get really out of hand, there can be no pickleball. So there's definitely incentive for all the factions to try to get along. That's my feeling.
Any other comments?
I just wonder why, not to prolong this any longer, but it's been a cool winter. The afternoons are favorable to outdoor sports. Why does everybody want to play pickleball in the morning? Why can't it be stretched out?
My thought.
I have no comments on it.
I'm gonna just say
And
it.
I'd like to go on to the next item on the agenda. If
But I'm
there's
gonna-
no objections,
There are
please.
people that play in the afternoons.
Oh, that's good to
And
know.
I think when people get in a routine, they stick to that routine no matter what, so.
I do a couple of things in the morning, but it's not pickleball.
Do we need to make a motion or anything, or? Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we leave things as it is for right now and see if it can work itself out.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's 3 ayes.
Opposed?
Opposed? Nay. Okay, the ayes have it, 3-2. 4-1? No, 3-2. I'm not allowed to vote.
That's baseball, John.
Okay.
Excuse me, was it 4-1 or 3-2?
4-1.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but alternates.
It's 5-1. It's 5-1.
No, it was 2 for the 6. I'm sorry, it was 4-2. It's 4-2. My fault, I
Who's
apologize.
an A?
Okay, let's go to staff matters, please.
Thank you, Chair. So current projects update, try to give these at each meeting, and I'll continue to do so. The George Street Playground installation is scheduled to begin tomorrow. I met on site today with the installation company, so we've got everything. They're going to lay it all out before they do any post-hole digging, and we'll go forward from there. So that, like I said, that'll start tomorrow.
Is the equipment there?
Not yet, no.
Oh, okay.
The installation will start tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Blossom Playground was delivered to the installation company. However, the poles were the wrong color. So the installation company is waiting to receive new poles from the playground manufacturer in order to set up a tentative installation date for that playground. I know I've gotten a lot of public not input, but questions regarding Blossom. It's been a while. That playground, if you remember, was shut down for safety concerns. Then we had to take it out, and now it's just sat there with no playground for quite a few months. So I'm pushing the installation company as much as I can to hopefully get the poles in, but it's just one of those things that's kind of out of our control at this point. We did start putting up the fencing there. We put up 2 sides just to kind of get it going. So once we get the playground equipment, we can quickly get the rest of the fencing installed and get it open. So once we get the playground installed, it won't be long. We can quickly get it open to the public. Baseball dugout construction is back to advancing a little bit. That's a project that we've done in-house. We have 1 guy that's working on the project, and if he gets pulled away somewhere else, he doesn't work for my department. So if he gets pulled away, then it's kind of on standstill a little bit. But we should have both of them completed within the next month, and that will complete the dugout construction project at Barber Street. If you're out and about, take a ride around Bryant Court Park and Philbert Street Park. We went through this winter when it was a little slower, and at Philbert Street, we went through and cleared the pathways that were in that park on the north side. There's a wooded area that we have pathways through, so staff went through and cleared those out. And then at Bryant Court, in the middle of that park, there's a large wooded area that had some heavy undergrowth that you couldn't really see inside the woods there. So we went through in conjunction between the Parks Department and also our Stormwater and Roads Department assisted us with some of the heavy machinery. And they went through and did a really nice job cleaning it up. And so we've still got a few things to clear up there, but that park is looking much better. And the last one update is the Yacht Club Seawall project. I know we've been talking about this one for a while, but it is moving along, and we anticipate completion sometime within the next month. We're hoping for a little bit better news. I know I have a tentative timeline date of punch list date, but I'll conservatively say by the end of March it'll be complete.
I think we need a ribbon cutting for that event. That would be a good. That's been a
It's, it's coming along, and it really does look good. If you're out and about and you're down there, you can kind of see, you can't go on the construction site, but you can see the north side of the boat ramp seawall is installed. They're pouring the sidewalks tomorrow on that portion as well. So that portion will open up a little bit quicker if we get the handrails back installed. And then the south side is moving along. They've already got the sheet piles installed on the south side. So that project is quickly coming to an end, so that'll be a good one. Then we'll move on to item B, Easter egg hunt. I know it's a little bit over a month away, but I wanted to go ahead and mention it to everyone. We've scheduled it for Friday night, April 15th. If you remember last year, we tried it on a Friday night and it seemed to go really well. There was a nice attendance that showed up. I'm sorry?
Did you say April 15th?
April 15th, yes.
Isn't Easter on April 12th?
No, it's the 17th, but that is Good Friday. That Friday.
Oh, okay, I'm confused. I thought it was the 12th.
Yeah, so that 5:30 on the 15th is when we'll kind of start the proceedings down there. We have a visit with the Easter Bunny, and then we'll have everything set up for the Easter egg hunt to start. Typically around 6:45 or 7, we'll determine that exact time, make sure it's posted on the flyers for exact time for the Easter egg hunts to start for people that just want to show up to that. And then we'll work with the police department, and they'll have a movie night showing right after the Easter egg hunt's over.
So you don't need us to help. We can show up just to have fun.
If you want to show up and help, or if you want to have fun, you can do either one.
Okay, I'm still putting in that we should have a section for older people. I've said this for a few years, maybe 70 and over. They can go, or 80 and over, but everybody just keeps chuckling at that. But there's a lot of
He did
grandparents.
a great job working with the Easter Bunny last year.
There's a lot of grandparents that come.
And so, I don't know if we want to do, well, we'll consider it, I'll say that.
Check the liability.
So that'll be another fun event coming up. And then the last thing is I've started the last few months trying to update you all on upcoming events in Riverview Park. The Chamber of Commerce has their concert in the park this coming Friday, starting at 5:30 to 8 p.m. The Sebastian Craft Club will have a 2-day event in March 12th and 13th. Both days they start at 10 a.m. and go to 2 or 3 p.m. And the final big event in March is Shrimp Fest. And that'll take place Friday, March 18th from 2 to 8 p.m., Saturday, March 19th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, March 20th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I invite everyone to come out for that as well. And that's all I have, unless you all have questions for me.
So the Brew Fest is on Saturday. I think that starts at 1.
Correct.
Did you get
So I
that
should have
in there?
announced it correctly. It's the Shrimp Fest and Craft Brew Hullabaloo. Yes. And
But the
Craft
beer's
Brew-
on Saturday.
Yes.
And you can get your tickets on Eventbrite.
Did you say this weekend?
No, March the 18th, 19th, and 20th. So on the 19th, it'll be the Brew Fest part of it.
And when is then that's the Shrimp Fest.
It's a Shrimp Fest, but they have that brew portion.
Okay, committee members and comments? Okay, we'll start on the right. Nothing?
Talked out.
Nothing, talked out. And
I want, Easy Street Park, we love our fountain. It is a new fountain and it's lit. It's like, whoa, people are like, wow, look at that. So it's really a plus. It's a new one, right? Yes. It's a brand new one.
Yes, it is new.
It's very nice. So thank you.
We did have a resident ask if the colors were going to change like nonstop, like a disco ball, and we had to tell her, no, they don't. Correct, yes, it will change color to color, but it won't have multiple colors at the same time or anything like that.
And I guess my other question is, I don't know, I was thinking about, when you talked about that piece of property by the old motel, we were talking about maybe doing some swings there. Has city council talked at all about are there any thoughts on that motel once it's torn down, what that property will be for?
So I know they did put out an RFQ or RFP for that property to see kind of what people would want to develop there, purchase it, that discussion.
Are we looking at selling it?
I think at this time, that's kind of off the table. I don't quote me on that, but I believe they've made the decision at this time not to pursue that. It may come back again, but I know it's kind of stopped at this point to get rid of it. And yes, we are looking at designing a potential swing park in that area that would have an area for some memorial benches and possibly memorial bricks along a walkway that would take people a little bit closer to the water, and then you'd be able to sit on the swings and look out over the lagoon. I think it's one of the best looking areas that we have on the waterfront. There's nothing there, so.
And then the other thing, I think I called you one time about that restroom that was needing help over by Krabby Bill's. But I didn't see anything posted in there, like a sign like, please call. It's being maintained by a company, right? Don't we contract that out, those bathrooms?
Correct. So the cleaning is done by an outside company, but issues like whenever you called, that is a city issue. What had happened was the transformer had gone on the pole, so we had no power there. So that's what was happening with that situation.
But I think we should have something posted in there, either call for cleaning this number or for some other problems, not your number.
I'll work with our public facilities department.
People weren't saying anything, they were just walking in and leaving quickly, and that was really a bad, for the public to have to look at that and go. So just making sure something is posted in there, so we have somebody to call.
We'll work on that.
Good. That's all, thank you.
Nothing.
I want to apologize for being late, but with my job, we never have a meeting the last day of the month, ever. And I'd appreciate you not doing it again. Until next February. I have a question, Brian. Do you know what's going on at that mobile gas station?
Oh, yeah, on US 1.
I know that I believe there was a demolition permit processed. I think it's being rebuilt, I believe.
That's what I heard, yep.
I think that's what it is.
The railroad crossings. So are we getting our sidewalks?
Yes, there will be sidewalks going across the railroads. I don't know if they're including it in this part of construction, but it will be coming as a future element.
On Main Street
On Main Street, yes.
and Barber?
At all the railroad crossings, there will be sidewalks being installed.
Okay.
I just don't know if the railroad company is doing it right now with this construction, but it will be coming.
All right, thank you.
Brian? East and westbound 512 was supposed to be closed starting today. So I went on my way, and I rode by, and eastbound was open. Is that going to stay open?
Was that this morning?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think they closed them down a little later than we anticipated. They had announced the
didn't wanna do the
closing
same
at
thing.
7 a.m. I believe it was a little bit later before they closed it.
All right, thanks.
Okay, our next meeting is March 28th then, right?
Yeah, hopefully it's not the last day of the month, but yes.
Meeting adjourned.